Hello class, Ryan here, and for this week's discussion I chose to research and discuss Sybil Ludington's ride on April 26, 1777. So I'll start off by stating that according to course guidelines, historians must be objective and honest in their investigations. My references for this discussion post are included in my abstract, and 3 come from the Jerry Falwell Digital Library, and 1 I took from the National Women's History Museum's website. So Sybil Ludington has been branded the female Paul Revere for her ride. Her story is actually more fascinating to me than that of Paul Revere's. Deborah Michaels summarized the situation that Sybil's father, a colonel in the militia, had received word one day from a messenger that the British were attacking Danbury, and he needed the militia mustered so they could respond to the British. His messenger was tired, so there's been some dispute whether Sybil volunteered to ride and be the messenger, or if her father asked her. But, the end result was Sybil volunteered to mount her horse and make the ride to muster the militia. Patton's account provides more details on her ride by stating it was 40 miles through very dangerous woods where Indians, loyalists could be laying in wait for an ambush or something like that. And it was also raining really hard. Patton points out some contrasting differences between Sybil's ride and Paul Revere's. Sybil was 16 whenever she did this. Paul Revere was 40. She further details that Revere's route was only 12 miles versus the 40 that Sybil Ludington rode. And then also, too, Paul Revere's route was over some well-lit roads through populated areas, and also the roads in and around Boston were of good quality during that time. In describing the impact of the ride, Alexander points out that although the militia couldn't assemble in enough time to support at Danbury, they were able to give battle to the British at Ridgefield once they received the news from Sybil as she rode through the area mustering the militia. She actually had about 400 militia respond to her messaging. Ridgefield is considered a victory for the British, but Alexander points out that the Americans benefited from this by reducing support for Britain among the colonials there and gaining recruits for the Continental Army. Patton talks about some of the recognition Sybil received from her ride. She was congratulated by George Washington after he heard about the ride. Everyone in her community praised her for her contributions in volunteering to be a messenger that night in response to the attack at Danbury. But after that, she was largely forgotten. Hunt's article shows how Sybil's ride resurfaced beginning around the 1880s in a book written by Martha Lamb. It started to build momentum for Sybil as a Revolutionary War heroine. And also, the branding of the female Paul Revere started too, kind of around this time. The momentum took hold in 1929 when George Turner wrote an article titled Putnam County's Feminine Paul Revere. And this inspired the local chapter, the Daughters of the American Revolution, to start projects to commemorate her ride. From this point on, Sybil's story started to be published in more and more works throughout the country. 1940, there was a poem made of her that was similar to the one Henry Wadsworth Longfellow did on Paul Revere, and that was published nationally in 1940. Michael's article on Sybil's finally shows that she gets recognition later on, like 1975, with a postal stamp. She eventually got a statue made of her. Historical markers along the route of her ride. The process may have taken a long time, but Sybil Ludington finally received the recognition for a ride that was, in my opinion, more dangerous than Revere's, and shows that other couriers during the war contributed just as much to the American victory as Revere. So that's my post for the week. It was interesting, very educational for me to learn about Sybil. I'm looking forward to the responses and also seeing the rest of the class posts. You have a great week.